In this video, we'll be doing a front view portrait in a planar analysis style. So we're going to start with our basic underdrawing, which I've already begun here. So this starts with an egg shape, which you can do just all in one, or you can start with your circle and then kind of add this sort of rounded triangular part at the bottom. Then I've segmented this in half using this line of symmetry to help us make sure that the two halves end up pretty similar. All right, so next up, I'm going to be adding the neck. Not too wide, not too skinny, a little bit smaller than the jaw. We will add the shoulders. So a little bit of an angle here. And I'm using these lines just to try to keep these even, so those angles happen at the same place. And then sloping down a little bit into the shoulders, which can go off the page. Then we're going to put in our eye line. So this is halfway. So I'm going to mark that halfway point. Check that it's halfway. And if you're erring, make sure you're erring on the side of having the upper part a little larger, not smaller. So that's half our eye line. Then our nose line. We used to say divide this in half again. So you can make a quarter mark. That said, really for our nose line, we often need it just a little bit higher. So if that was a quarter, I just moved that up a little bit. So I'll put approximately a quarter. So a little bit up from a quarter. Then we're going to divide this in half again. So again, that's going to be about 1/8. And this is going to help us position the features. So this is the mouth line. I'm going to put a rough mark for the mouth right there for now. This is our eye line. 5 eyes fit across the head. So you're going to estimate the size that you think the eyes are, and then you'll see if you're correct if those fit across the head 5 times. All right, then I'm going to go ahead and put in my nose. So starting with a long oval for the bridge of my nose, and the smaller, or not smaller, but the ball of the nose overlapping, sitting on that nose line. And then the 2 nostrils, which may sit a little bit above that nose line or just on it. The ball of the nose comes in front, overlapping. And then we also want to do the connection up to the brow line. So put in our brow line, and then we're connecting at an angle upward from that bridge of the nose. We can also go ahead and put our hairline in. So again, I'm kind of estimating where that hairline would be. And we can also use this measurement for the face that tells us that this brow to hairline should be about equal to brow to the bottom of the nose, equal from the bottom of the nose to the bottom of the chin. So hairline to brow is 1/3 of the face. And over here, these measurements, that half line, that is half of the head. So all the way to the top of the head, 1/2. This, however, is looking at the face, so just the forehead down. So 1/3 from the hairline to that brow. Second third is that brow line to the bottom of the nose. And that final third is the nose to the very bottom of the chin. So if those don't come out quite right, you may need to make small adjustments. Okay, finishing this up, adding to the mouth, we'll often put in an upper lip here and the sides of the mouth would come out to about these lines that line up with the center of the eyes. We can also add into the nose, remembering that the width of the nose is equal to that space between the eyes, so down at the bottom. And I'm just adding these little angles here, and then connecting down here. Those are going to stand in for these sides of the nose, side planes. All right, putting in the remainder of the features, we'll put in kind of a circle or oval here for the chin. We sometimes have to move the sides of the face in here a little bit if it's slightly too wide or if the face is a little bit narrower. And as we do that, if we need to move them in, we're also going to create this angle going from the temple, the side of the face, with an angle down to the center of the mouth. So I drew that new center line, and from the temple down, making those even on either side. So you may not have to move them in at all, it just depends. Sometimes I find that my head ends up too wide here. If you did move them in, then I'm just connecting them to that part, the top of the head. All right, now I'm going to finish this out. Usually you see a little bit of a roundness here as you come down from that hinge of the jaw where the mouth opens down to here. If you had to adjust the width, and notice it was a little wider on one side, so I didn't really have to adjust on that side. All right, then I would erase what I don't need, as I just did. Putting in the ears now on the side of the head. Those will fall from about the eye line, or sometimes as high up as the brow, down to about the nose line. And just a skinny oval. Tends to be a little wider at the top than the bottom, so tapering. And the final thing I do like to put in, I like to put in this side plane of the face, so going from the temple, an angle down to kind of this side of the chin. Like so. And then sometimes I'll put the eyebrows in. They would go up here. So before we move on, we can go ahead and maybe erase some of these eyes that are extra, just to clarify things a little bit. And I'm leaving all of these pretty light. Since we are going to now do a planar head, I'm going to draw on top of this, and I'm going to actually make it stand out even a little bit more by using an orange colored pencil for contrast. So I'm going to go ahead and start with this center line right here. We already did that in our underdrawing, and it's going to correspond to that one right there. And then likewise, we also did these lines. So we're going to just go ahead and go over those. Likewise, we already did this line, which we see in the planar analysis. So I'm going to go over, and you're going to see I ended my eyebrow right above the very edge of where my eye is, and that's where I'm going to end this line for the brow bone as well. So this is, again, pretty much right in line with the end of the eye. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put in this bridge of the nose. So they're kind of putting this front plane all together. So I'm going to put in this bottom line right about here. This is going to turn into this line right there. And I'm going to put that right about here. So not at the very bottom of the nose, kind of about maybe 2/3 of the way down this ball of the nose. And then I'm going to connect this for this kind of, for that kind of triangle without the top shape. And then I'm going to go ahead and put in these side planes. They're doing theirs at a slightly different angle, so I might adjust that a little bit. These are going to be these right here. All right. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put in this line at the very bottom of the nose. I'm going to extend it out to the width of our nostrils and then connect it to this line that we did for the bridge of the nose, and again create this kind of triangle without the top shape. And then I'm going to connect from here to here. So side plane of my nose. All right, now I'm ready to do the eye sockets. So I'm going to create this eye shape, but I'm going to make it a little bit more angular, which is a good reminder. And they actually connect this all the way into here. So this is a good reminder that the eye does tend to be, and a lot of the parts of the body do tend to be, not quite as curvy as we often think of them. So they're using 3 angles and then 3 angles down here and connecting it up there. All right, now I'm going to go ahead, I may have made that just a little bit large. I'm going to go ahead and make that a little smaller. So by doing that, I've essentially created that eyelid right there. So if I had made it really the size I should have made the eye opening, I would have then added the eyelid on top, but I realized that the size I made it, I needed to add the eyelid inside. All right. Either way, I'm going to end up with that eyelid. So if we zoom in on here, this is what I'm doing right there. Okay. And then at these places where the angles happen, I'm going to create a line there, but I'm also going to then connect that up to there. So that angle continues all the way up to the brow. Same thing over here, angle and continuing up to the brow. This lower lid, they're also drawing in, so you can have that connecting, and you can draw those angles in there as well. Right. Technically how this is touching, see how this kind of comes to the inside, so I had to kind of finagle that to make sure that would come to the inside there. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to draw a line from the edge of the line of the eye out, and then I'm going to create a line from here up at the brow down to about there on the temple. Okay, so we're going to leave that alone for now, but we'll come back to that later. Okay, I'm going to pause just a second, and I think my eye got a little bit large. I think I was looking at the overall shape rather than the inside shape when I started it. So I'm just going to move that in just a little. So this is just a good example of no matter how long you've been doing art, mistakes will happen, so you want to take a moment, look at how your progress is going, and make revisions as needed. Okay, so I'm going to leave this alone for now. I'm going to repeat this process on the other side. So on this side, I'm going to try to think about doing kind of this inside of the eye first, maybe. So my angles. And then I can add to it with the eyelids. So either way can work as long as you're keeping the overall size and shape in mind. Okay, so you don't want the eye to get overly large when you add the eyelid. Okay, then connecting these angles and bringing them up to the brow line. And then drawing this straight line out a little bit, and then connecting from this angle down to the cheekbone. And I'm just taking a moment to kind of pause and try to have those line up symmetrically. So if it comes out a little bit at the wrong angle, it's not symmetrical, you can come in and just erase a little bit. All right, so I've got this eye area, I've got this nose area. Now we're going to move into the mouth. All right, so starting from the center, we're going to have these two lines that delineate this space where there's a dip below the nose and above the lips. And those are going to connect to this dip in the top lip. And then I'm going to go from the top of that over to the edge of the mouth. So that's going to be near center of the eye line. So I say near, it might not be quite to the center, but it's going to be near. So I'll do that on the other side as well. In this center, they're giving this a little bit of an angle and an angle, just a little bit, and then coming in a little bit lower at an angle in the center. So angling down a bit, and then drawing from this peak, angling in and down. So again, all of these lines showing the direction of these different planes. Then this center part is a little bit wider on the bottom lip. And then connecting back up to this point, which is going to be near that line that's going straight down. So maybe just in from that line, which is the center of the eye. Okay. Then we are down to the chin area. So first they're going to create this space between the lip and the chin. So angling down, they kind of do a little bit of a curve here. So you can curve, or I'm going to stick with a strict planar approach. So I'm just turning my curve into a bit of an angle. So flat, angle, angle. I'm trying to get that as symmetrical as we can. And then for the chin, the very bottom of it is going to be coming down and back, curving around, and going to be in shadow. So I'm going to do this lighter part here, a little bit up from the bottom of my face, and connect that to that dip that we did below the mouth. And so down here, I just saved a little bit of room for where it curves down, the face and the chin curve down and around. So I've now created that little space down here. All right, so now we're getting to the sides of the head. So first thing I'm going to do is create this dark area. So this is where the jawline starts to curve under. So I'm going to see that I've got this turn that's going to be right around, right even with, or right below in this case, where the mouth is. And I'm going to connect from the bottom of the chin up to where that's happening. So maybe a slight curve there. All right, and then I'm going to go ahead and do the same on the other. All right, then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to try to make sure these are even. So that is occurring either right at that mouth line or just under. Okay, then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just delineate the sides of the head, which we already did, and they're taking some liberties here and just using curves at the top of the head. And I'm going to go ahead and do that too. All right. Then we're going to go ahead and add in the ear. So I'll just do the outline for now. And then they are showing the sides of this top part of the head. So they're going from this brow bone up to about the hairline, or a little under, because they're letting this hairline curve a little bit. And then here, this curves up and back. All right, so same thing will happen over here. So trying to mimic that same angle I did before. And you can slow down the video or pause it as needed to make sure that you have things fairly symmetrical. And then curving up and back around the planes of the skull. Okay, so there we go. And then we're going to do these side planes of the face. So these angles might come down to these side planes that you already have, or if they don't quite seem to match up, you can, finesse them as needed. But we're basically doing the same idea that we did before, connecting, and actually they're going to do theirs down to that top of the chin instead, but same basic idea. So just adjusting and putting that to that top plane of the chin. Okay, so we're pretty much done with this. I'm going to make sure that my neck is the right width. If you found when you did this part at the jaw that things changed a little bit, then you may need to adjust. Just make sure that your neck is just slightly smaller than the width of the jaw. All right, for this bottom part of the neck, they're also defining side planes. And then you would actually have this come down into the clavicle right here. Which, let's see, you can kind of see that a little bit right here in that model. All right, so now we're pretty much finished with this. We might take a moment to kind of hold it back, adjust anything that needs to be slightly adjusted. I'm doing my best to kind of keep these angles straight as I'm drawing. Okay, so making any revisions you need to make. Oh, I forgot a little bit about the ears. So they kind of break out of the planar thing, but they do kind of show this form of this top ridge of the ear. And then you do have a center part that sometimes sticks out a little bit beyond. I'm just going to keep this a little simpler and just kind of do a line and then a line. And then down here, I'll do this kind of opening, just a line and a line. Okay, now I can go ahead and add a little bit of shading. So I'm going to use a 2B pencil, but could use your graphite stick, whatever makes sense. So some of these darkest parts, and actually maybe I'll use even a darker pencil here. Some of these darkest parts are going to be right around the eye. The eye socket goes back into the head. Let's see. And they are leaving the eyelids a little bit lighter, so just switching to maybe a slightly lighter pencil or switching up your pressure. Let's see, I'm going to go ahead and erase some of the underdrawing in this center so you can see that this center part, the light is hitting. And then I'm going to shade my side planes. Shade this plane underneath the nose a little darker. So that's going to be just as dark as those areas around the eyes. So either more pressure or you could switch up your pencil or both. All right, some other really dark areas while I have this darker pencil out. We're going to have this upper lip fairly dark. Oop, and I just noticed I forgot to connect the nose to the mouth. So we have this whole muscle area here around the mouth. All right, let's see. So going back to our shading, this area down here, it's a little darker. We've got this area in here is a little darker. And this area here. Let's see, and just making some of these a bit darker. Skip to the side of the lip. All right, and then using one of my lighter pencils, and they have this side of the face a little bit darker than the other, so I'm starting over here. And using this as an opportunity too to kind of clean up and revise a bit as I go. This whole side plane of the face. And if you're feeling like these lines are intruding too much, you can erase those. Or if they're not distracting, you could just leave them. Just depends on how distracting they are. So feel free to erase them as needed. All right, same thing with the ear. All right, other side of the head, maybe a little bit darker. So here too, I can cover up that mistake that I made. So again, erasing any of these lines in here as needed. Mine are kind of disappearing into my shading, but if yours are standing out too much, take a moment and just erase those as needed. So we're shading fairly quickly. This is a study. It can be a little bit on the loose side, but not going so quickly as to detract from the overall look. And again, I can go back and tighten up some of these lines. As I go. So just making sure that things are looking fairly neat. I can even use in here kind of, again, like that guideline to make sure that this is even. All right, and then finishing up with some of this shading on the neck. All right, there you have it. We can clean up some of this underdrawing. Check for things you might have missed. So in my case, this ear over here, a little bit darker than the other ear because of the light source. And then maybe take a minute to blend. I'm going to blend some of my lighter areas first. And if you need to, maybe you're erasing some, if you are going over some of these edges a little too much. So this is one of the reasons for using the colored pencil. All of this is going to stay pretty crisp. If you over blend though, if you go over lines that you didn't mean to, just go back and erase and lighten things up as needed. So this doesn't have to be perfect, but we're going to just keep craftsmanship in mind a bit. So this should not be something that you're belaboring. This whole drawing should take maybe 1 70-minute block class period, maybe a class and a half with the shorter blocks. And finish by labeling it. So it's planar head front view. And making sure to have your name on the back. And for my students, your bell. Okay, there we go.